Welcome to the CURES digital show and podcast, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin. Today's episode is sponsored by the Center for Advanced Reproductive Services in Farmington, Connecticut. Are you feeling overwhelmed? How do you add more happy to your mom life? My guest today is Peggy Sullivan. She is the founder of the nonprofit She Can. Welcome, Peggy.
You? Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a little more happiness today.
Absolutely. And you wrote a book entitled Happiness is Our Responsibility. Talk about what you mean by that title.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially during these times, everybody has just put happiness on the back burner. And Happiness is Your Responsibility is a book that really leads people and tells people how to lead a happier and more satisfying life, how to optimize your joy. Happiness is such a contagious emotion, and it does just make us feel good. It has these magical powers. It lowers anxiety, it decreases stress, increases energy, improves relationships. If you look at your brain under an MRI when it's happy, all the signals are lighting up and telling your body to feel really great. So I love to give people ways to ignite their happiness muscle.
Yeah, well, and so many moms are struggling with the feeling of overwhelm. There's just so much to do. So how do you go from surviving to thriving so that you can have that happy feeling more often?
That's a great question. I usually tell people to stick to three things. First and foremost, happiness is like a muscle. You got to flex it. You got to use it. And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. So I always tell people three things to ignite your happiness muscle. One is define your happiness rituals. Those are those things that you do every single day because they really, really make you happy. Could be as simple as lighting a candle. I love pumpkin spice. It takes me to my happy. Or sometimes it could be as simple as I have a 24-pound cat and I love taking him for a walk in a baby buddy. It's just my time, me time. So knowing your happiness rituals and doing those things, a pop of dark chocolate, whatever they are, those things you should be doing every single day because they will brighten your day. The second thing I tell people is go through the process of knowing what your values are. The few, 3 or 4 things that really ignite you, that make you feel joyful. I know for me, I just went through the process of reorganizing my values and sort of better understanding them. And I discovered that I like doing really hard things. You know, I ran my first marathon when I was age 50, and it was hard. I ran it during the snow, during the cold, and 2 months of training, but that feeling I had when I crossed the line. So you can learn a lot about yourself and how to ignite happy by really knowing your values, the things that are important to you. And last but not least, I tell everybody, happiness is truly an inside job. I learned that very, very young in my life. My mom, Sue Khan, died very, very young. She had a brain tumor, she had cancer, and the last couple of years of her life were just so traumatic. She was depressed, she was frustrated, she was angry, and then all of a sudden in the middle of all of that, she wasn't. And I'm like, Mom, what changed, And she says, I know I've got cancer. I know my days are numbered. But you know what? Happiness is an inside job. So I am going to remind myself to be happy every day. I'm going to make that shift in mindset. So for me, that was such an amazing, magical moment because if my mother could do that, anybody can do that. And it's, just shift your mindset.
Well, it's empowering to know that it is an inside job because it means we could actually do something about it, even though so many people have been suffering with job loss or insecurity or problems, especially the last few years. So what does it look like to shift that mindset, starting with maybe what you do in the morning?
I have happiness rituals that I start in the morning that are so funny. I live in Buffalo, New York during the winter, and I love taking my big, fuzzy pink slippers and putting the hair dryer into them and then jumping into the nice warm slippers and doing my happy dance. It's a ridiculous thing, but it just reminds me that this is my life and that I can do things like this to make me happy. And dancing makes me really, really happy. The other thing I do in the morning is I think about all the things I'm grateful for, because no matter what in life, we have so much to be grateful for. And if we can think about those things and remind us and take some pause and pleasure in those things, that's another way to jumpstart your happiness in the morning.
Yeah. So what's the difference between busy and happy?
Great, great question. I have learned there is a really big difference between being busy and being happy. We tend to zombie from one task to another. We check off all the boxes and we're in a state of what I call busy instead of being happy. And I know because that used to be me. I was the epitome of eat, work, sleep, repeat. And I think a lot of people out there are kind of on that treadmill. But then I had a big wake up call. I call the pistachio nut incident. And one day I came home from work and I was really tired and really hungry. And I grabbed some kibbles for my cat and I grabbed some pistachio nuts for me, fell asleep on the couch and woke up to my cat throwing up pistachio nuts and me realizing I had just eaten a whole handful of cat food without even realizing it. And I think we get stuck in our routines. And sometimes we need something like that to make us realize there is more to life. That work-life balance, that line between work and play has become so blurred, and we need to grab a hold of that and say, hey, this is my life, and I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to add more joy to it.
Yeah, I mean, and it starts with a choice, right? So that choice that I'm
Yeah.
going to be happy in the morning, and happy sometimes could be peaceful. It doesn't always mean that you're bouncing for joy, right? If you're having a tough day, we can acknowledge that. I'm curious about a UCLA study you referenced called Tend and Befriend, and it looks how women and men react to stress. And I guess we do something a little differently than men.
We do. There is a UCLA study called the Tend and Befriend study, and it takes a look at men and women and how they react to stress. And men and women both have this fight or flight thing. I mean, you think about it when you're stressed out, you pick a fight, you run away. That's like our normal responses. But women have a third response, and our response is to release oxytocin, which is a chemical that causes us to want to tend and to befriend. And tending is really about nurturing activities like self-care, and befriending is really about the maintenance and the creation of social networks. And that's why women love to be with other women, because it's empowering. We get each other's back. We help each other. We pull each other through it. It's the secret sauce for many women, and having and finding a community that will support you no matter what is so important. Is a great study.
Yes, and I know that for women, sometimes that's what goes on the bottom of the to-do list between work and kids and everything else. And they're like, oh, I don't have time to go out with my friends, or I'm just gonna relax and watch a show. We all want that feeling of like, I've got an hour left. What am I gonna do? So how do you turn your values of needing connection into something actionable when life is so busy?
Well, I know, yeah, well, I know for me, that's why I started a female nonprofit, a way to get women together 10, 12, 20 times a month to talk about what's important to them and to be able to talk about their challenges and to get real life solutions on how to do that. I think in addition to that, when you think about your values and you know what they are, it's really just as simple as having a values report card, writing it down, knowing what your values are, and every night just taking those 2 to 3 minutes saying, am I living my values? Am I doing what really makes me happy? And only you have control to be able to put those things back into your life. And I'll tell you, I'd sure be happy to talk with anybody and everybody who's interested in a few more tools and tricks. It really is possible. And it's amazing to watch people step into their power when they understand how to flex their happiness muscle. It's game changing.
I know you're speaking about this. I want to let everyone know that you have your book, Happiness is Your Responsibility, and they can find you also at PeggySullivanSpeaker.com. But just even having these thoughts, I think we've talked about things lots of times on Kara's Cures about putting these things on your to-do list, right? Put breathe on your to-do list, or maybe you're going to remember to write down something like that gives you joy, right? Because we have to plug our energy drains and we have to look for joy. So these are just having this awareness, hopefully will snap us out of that hamster wheel, because as you mentioned, it is our life. So we want to feel happy as much as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, for as much as things are challenging and things are really hard, and there are a lot of things out of our control, if we focus on the things that we can control, like our attitude, I always like to tell people always say, well, is the glass half full and half empty? What type of person are you? And I'm like, it's neither. You can fill the glass every single day. You can refill it, and that's your job. And when I think about it from that approach, it all becomes very, very manageable.
Yes. Peggy Sullivan, thank you for the great advice, and I hope everyone has a happy day. You can come back to this episode on Kara's Cures streaming on the app if you want to rewatch or share or think of some routines. You can also listen on the Kara's Cures podcast. Lots of great content to make you happy. A walk in a podcast. That's always a good option. That's what I like to do. So thanks for being with us, Peggy. And everyone, I just want everyone to have a great day and be well.
Thank you.